Oi boys, welcome to another video on the channel. It all comes down to this. With 27 rounds of regular season matches in the bag, 8 teams remain. Before we dive into this week's fixtures, let's quickly take a gaze at how we did in the final regular round at the season end. I gotta say, it wasn't too great. We went 4 from 8 with picks and only 2 of the boys saluted for the bakery. So the wrong picks were the Broncos. I thought their forward pack would carry, but it wasn't the case. There was still plenty of errors on the side of the Broncos. Granted, it was both of their B-sides. As for the Bunnies, they cap off a pretty disappointing end to the season after being premiership faves at one point to not making the 8s. That's actually kind of nuts. I guess I gave them too much respect. I was expecting them to eventually flip the switch, and those lights stayed off. For the Warriors, we backed the system, and from what we saw on the weekend, they're not quite plug and play at the moment. And I guess the Dolphins just wanted it more. They wanted to finish the season on a high after a pretty disappointing last couple of months. I'm a little annoyed about, a couple of these selections I'm a little annoyed about because we've been preaching momentum, but we went against it last week, with the Roosters and the Knights. And although the Knights didn't have their main players in key positions, it shows that the systems that they have in place is pretty solid. Their foundation is pretty solid. And yeah, it was a pretty typical performance. Anyway, that's it for the quick little wrap up of round 27. Let's go ahead and do a deep dive on these team lists for the first week of finals and make some predictions. So the first game of week 1 finals, we have the Broncos and Storm in a rematch. Only this time both teams will be at full strength. In the back line for the Broncos, we'll start with, we got Reece Walsh, Jesse Arthurs, in for Corey Oates, who's been dropped to 18th man. Got Donny Staggs, Herbie Farnworth, and Selwyn Cobbo round off that back 5. And the halves, of course, Ezra Mam and Adam Reynolds. On the side of the Storm, we have Nick Meaney, Will Warbrick, Marion Sever, Young Tudumai-Peta, Xavier Coates, Cam Munster, and Jerome Hughes. In the engine room for the Bronx, we got Tom Flegler, Billy Walters, Payne Haas, Kurt Capewell, Jordan Rickey, and Pat Carrigan. And for the Storm, we got Tui Kamikamitha, Harry Grant, Christian Welsh, Trent Loiero, Eliesa Gatoa, and Josh King. The Broncos interchange, we got Tyson Smoothie, Brendan Piakura, Kirby Hetherington, and Keenan Palacia. And to round off the 17 for the Storm, we got Bronson Garlick, Tom Eisenuth, Big Nelson Asafa Solomona, and Ryan Pappenhausen. Both teams absolutely jam-packed. As for my pick, I'm going to go with the Broncos. Most of these games are pretty tough to gauge, except for that Sunday game, respectfully of course. But yeah, I'm banking on the Broncos forward pack to lay the platform. Your Payne Haases, your Paddy Carrigan, even if they don't win that power struggle, I do think the boots of Adam Reynolds will be enough to get them over the line. We've seen it countless times. His kicking game has dictated terms and come in clutch it on a number of occasions. For the Storm, the obvious ones to watch is their returning spine members, Cam Munster, Jerome Hughes, Harry Grant, all big game players, Munster in particular, Pappenhausen as well, I'll throw into that. Even if he is coming off the bench, that could change come game day, but their bench in general is pretty solid. Bronson Garlick, Sofa Solomona, Eisenhuth the job doer. It's a pretty well-balanced bench. Might lean towards the smaller side, but yeah, in my opinion, it's pretty good. I wouldn't say it's better than the Bronx bench, as the Broncos bench has been performing these past couple months. But yeah, again, Pappenhausen, Grant, Hughes, Munster, they're their biggest threat, along with their coach, of course, who is a master strategist. He has shut down plenty of superstars during his tenure at the Storm, and Reece Walsh, it'll be super interesting to see how they deal with him. So yeah, I'll be taking the Broncos at home. I know there's this little Melbourne curse at Suncorp, but I'm backing them to shake that. Give me the Broncos, 1-12. And for the second game of finals, the first of 2 for Saturday, we got the Panthers hosting the Warriors. When it comes to the lineup, both teams, we will go through. We'll start with the Panthers. Starting with the back line, we got Dylan Edwards, Sonia Taruva, Isaac Tango, Steve Crichton, Brian To'o, Jack Cogger, and Nathan Cleary. And the backs for the Warriors, we got Chance Nickel-Klokstad, Dylan Watene-Zelezniak, Rocco Berry, Adam Pompey, Marcelo Montoya, and their halves, Temaire Martin and Sean Johnson. The pack for the Panthers, we got Moses Leota, Mitch Kenny, James Fisher-Harris, Scott Sorensen, Liam Martin, and Isaiah Yeo. And for the Warriors, we got Adam Fanua-Blake, Wade Egan, Mitch Barnett, Jackson Ford, Marata Niukore, and Tohu Harris. And finally, to round off the 17 for the Panthers on the bench, we got Tyron Peachy, Lindsay Smith, Spencer Leniu, and Zach Hosking. Warriors, we got Stylan Walker, Jazz Tavanga, Bailey Surinam, and Josh Curran. So the Panthers coming off a pretty dominant win, eliminating the Cowboys out of the competition. There were question marks surrounding their lineup and whether they'd do the odd bait and switch and rest a whole bunch of players, but for me, I thought that they'd use this game as a bit of a rhythm finder, because although they've been pumping teams, their attack is still a little clunky, especially with Jack Cogger filling in for Jerome Luai. I will be taking the Panthers, but as I look at this forward pack on paper, that's a juicy matchup. You know, you got Fanua Blake, Egan and Mitch Barnett, who's an absolute dog in the front row, coming up against the fittest pack in the league. They did hang off them for, I'd say, a majority of the match in their previous meeting, but that Panthers defense is ironclad, unbreakable, or at least we thought so until they played the bloody Eels a couple weeks ago. It was pretty interesting watching their game last week, because this year, we all know they've been lacking that fluidity, that smoothness in attack, and what they're doing to, I guess, remedy that is there's a lot of second phase footy. They're not sporadic either. The offloads, they're clean, for the most part at least, and yeah, it's interesting to watch. Not only are they grinding teams out, tackling them into submission, if you will, but they're also running them off their feet in attack. It'll be interesting to see how the Warriors deal with that. If there's anyone that can counteract that aspect of their game, it's one of their ex-coaches, of course, and new Warriors head coach, Andrew Webster. But yeah, like I said, my pick, we are going to play it safe with the Panthers, and we'll go 1-12. And headlining Saturday, we have the first eliminator between the Sharks and the Roosters. This being played at Shark Park. In terms of the lineup, both teams have named the same sides as last week. Even for the Roosters, they got Joey Manu, who will most likely play this week. Also for the Sharks, it's looking like Will Kennedy will return in place of Connor Tracy. That's one to watch given that he is in reserves. And for the Roosters, they've named Joey Manu once again, so he'll most likely play. And lining up on the wing again, I think Dan Dubois out for the season, but yeah, they've got Feta Lainga Paunga. It was pretty strong for them last week. As for my pick in this first eliminator, I'm actually going to, I'm not sure who the favorite is, but I'm going to back the Roosters. I'm back in momentum. We ignored the signs last week, but we're back on the bandwagon, baby. I just think that the Sharks are an outgrindable team, if that makes sense, and the Roosters have the players to get that done. I'm looking at Brandon Smith, Lindsay Collins, Nat Butcher, Victor Radley. Where I worry for the Roosters is that bench. The game will be a grinder, looking at the Sharks bench and Jack Williams, Royce Hunt, Hazelton and Oregon. Kaufusi, that is. They're pretty heavy in comparison to the Roosters. But yeah, there's not much else to say about this. I'm back in momentum. Give me the Roosters 1-12. And to wrap up week 1 of finals, we have the Knights hosting the Canberra Raiders. This, you'd think, is a straightforward pick. In terms of ins and outs for the Raiders, they'll be without Seb Chris, who has been banned for 5 matches for that spear tackle. And the Knights welcome back a bunch of stars. Kalen Ponga at fullback, Dane Yagai in the centres, Jackson Hastings at halfback, Phoenix Crossland in the 9, Tyson Frizzell and Lachlan Fitzgibbon. What a run it's been for both sides heading into finals. On one side, the Knights have been piping hot. They're on a pretty crazy streak at the moment. And on the other side, the Raiders are bloody battered and bruised, limping into finals, if you will. I'll be brutally honest, I don't really see a path to victory for the Raiders. I do believe the Knights have them beats from 1-17, and when it comes to that grind, the Raiders will need superhuman efforts from Joseph Tapine and Hudson Young. It's brutal, but that's my honest opinion. Even in the back line, it's tough for me to see where their points will be coming from unless they play super off the cuff and just keep hammering offloads. But yeah, like most, I'm pretty sure I'm heavy on the Knights, so I'm backing them in. Give me the Knights at home, 13+. So to wrap my picks for week 1 of finals, we got the Broncos 1-12, the Panthers 1-12, the Roosters 1-12, and the Newcastle Knights 13+. As always, we'll leave a list of Oddskis Bakery. Surely we can hit above 50% for that, if we play it safe, of course. And if you have any tips and predictions of your own, let us know in the comment section down below. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you later.